Have you ever felt that boiling sensation, that hot rush of blood to your head when someone cuts you off in traffic, or a colleague takes credit for your work, or a loved one says something thoughtlessly cruel? A moment where reason flies out the window and a fiery, destructive impulse takes over. You lash out, you scream, you send the email you can't take back, and then, in the quiet aftermath, when the smoke clears, you're left with a bitter taste in your mouth, the cold, heavy stone of regret. You realize the anger didn't solve anything. In fact, it made everything worse. It damaged a relationship, tarnished your reputation, and left you feeling drained and ashamed. What if you could reclaim that moment? What if you could face the most infuriating people in the most frustrating situations with an unshakable calm, a quiet strength that nothing can penetrate? This isn't a superpower reserved for ancient sages or meditating monks. It is a skill, a muscle that can be trained. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome were masters of this art. They were not emotionless statues. They were generals, emperors, playwrights, and merchants who lived in a brutal and unpredictable world. They understood that the greatest battle is not fought on the field or in the marketplace, but within the fortress of our own minds. They developed a practical, battle-tested toolkit for mastering emotion. And today we are going to unlock 9 of their most powerful strategies for why they never lose their cool, and how you can learn to do the same. And if you stay with me until the end, I will share with you an ancient story that perfectly captures today's episode. 1. Stop reacting. The first and most fundamental strategy is to create a space between trigger and response. The Stoics understood a crucial truth about human psychology. We are not disturbed by events, but by our judgment about events. As the philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." When someone insults you, the insult itself is just words floating in the air. It is your mind that catches them, interprets them as an attack, and ignites the fire of anger. The initial flash of emotion, the surprise, the sting of injustice, is natural, an involuntary reflex. The Stoics called this a first motion, but what comes next is a choice. You can choose to pour fuel on that initial spark, fanning it into a raging inferno of outrage. Or you can choose to observe it, acknowledge it, and let it pass without acting on it. Seneca, a man who advised the volatile Emperor Nero, knew the dangers of unchecked emotion better than anyone. He called anger a brief insanity and warned that the greatest remedy for anger is delay. When you feel that heat rising, the Stoic practice is to pause. Take a deep breath, walk away from the computer, count to 10 or 100 if you need to. This delay is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate sign of strength and self-control. It is in this sacred pause that you reclaim your power. You move from being a puppet of your emotions to the master of your own mind. Think about it. How many times have you regretted something said or done in the heat of the moment? The anger makes promises your sober self can't keep. It clouds your judgment, narrows your perspective, and drives you to actions that are almost always self-destructive. By stopping the immediate reaction, you give your rational mind, what the Stoics called the hegemonikon, or the ruling faculty, a chance to come online. It can assess the situation clearly, consider the consequences, and choose a response that aligns with your values and long-term goals. Not one dictated by a fleeting, fiery impulse. The goal isn't to never feel anger, but to never be controlled by it. 2. Don't take it personally. One of the greatest sources of our anger and frustration is the belief that the world revolves around us. When someone is rude, we think, "How dare they disrespect me?" When we are overlooked for a promotion, we think, "They have a personal vendetta against me." The Stoics offer a radical and liberating alternative. It's almost never about you. The great emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius began his days with a powerful meditation. He would remind himself, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. All of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." Notice what he's doing. He is not preparing for a personal attack. He is preparing for an encounter with flawed human nature. He understood that difficult people will always exist. Their behavior is a reflection of their own character, their own struggles, their own ignorance, not a judgment on your worth. Someone who is rude is likely having a bad day, or perhaps they live every day in a state of bitterness and negativity. The person who lies and cheats is operating from a place of fear and scarcity. Their actions are symptoms of their own inner turmoil. To take it personally is to make the arrogant assumption that you are the cause of their dysfunction. When you depersonalize the actions of others, you rob them of their power to hurt you. It's like standing in the rain. You don't get angry at each individual raindrop for falling on you. You understand it's simply the nature of weather. You can get soaked and miserable, or you can put on a raincoat and continue on your way. The rudeness and incompetence of others is a kind of psychic weather. It's happening all around you, all the time. You cannot stop it, but you can choose not to let it soak you to the bone. By recognizing that their behavior is about them, you create an emotional shield. Their negativity can no longer find a purchase. It glances off you because you know its source is their own inner world, not yours. 3. Use obstacles to get stronger. Where most people see frustration, the Stoic sees an opportunity. Where most see an antagonist, the Stoic sees a teacher. This is perhaps the most transformative mindset shift in all of Stoicism, encapsulated in the famous phrase from Marcus Aurelius: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He meant that every obstacle, every difficulty, every frustrating person we encounter is not just something to be endured, but something to be used. Other people's behavior can be infuriating, but it is also a form of training. Think of it this way: you cannot build physical muscle by only lifting things you find easy. You must introduce resistance, a weight that challenges you. Only then do your muscles tear and rebuild stronger than before. Difficult people are the weights for your character. The impatient boss is an opportunity to practice your patience. The gossiping coworker is a chance to strengthen your integrity by refusing to participate. The person who insults you is a sparring partner for your emotional resilience. Each encounter is a test, a drill, a chance to practice the very virtues you wish to cultivate. Epictetus, who was born a slave and endured immense hardship, taught that we should view every challenge as a wrestler views his opponent. He would ask, what would Socrates or Zeno have done? He saw these challenges not as misfortunes, but as raw material from which to build a stronger, more virtuous self. When you adopt this mindset, the world changes. The traffic jam is no longer a source of rage, but a moment to practice mindfulness or listen to an enlightening podcast. The critical comment is no longer a personal attack, but feedback you can choose to learn from or discard. You begin to welcome these challenges, not because you enjoy pain, but because you understand that they are the very things that will forge you into the person you want to become. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are an alchemist, turning the lead of adversity into the gold of character. 4. Don't let it get to you. Imagine you are a great, unmovable mountain. Storms rage around you, winds howl, and clouds gather and obscure the sun. But the mountain itself remains unchanged. It is solid, grounded, and serene at its core. The weather is external, the mountain's nature is internal. This is the image the Stoics held for the ideal mind. They sought to cultivate an inner citadel, a fortress of tranquility that external events could not breach. Seneca advised his friend Lucilius to let nothing upset you. This wasn't a call for apathy, but for a profound sense of perspective. Most of the things that anger and upset us are, in the grand scheme of things, trivial: a spilled coffee, a forgotten appointment, a rude comment online. We allow these small, fleeting events to disturb our inner peace, to hijack our entire day. The Stoic practice is to let these things pass over you like clouds in the sky. You can acknowledge their presence. There is a cloud of frustration, but you don't have to become the cloud. You are the sky, vast and unchanging, in which the clouds appear and disappear. This requires a conscious choice to protect your inner state. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He understood that our most precious resource is our tranquility, our ataraxia. To give it away because someone was rude or because something didn't go our way is a terrible bargain. It's like handing the keys to your home to a complete stranger. Why would you give someone else the power to dictate your emotional state? Protecting your peace doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means addressing them from a place of calm, rational clarity, not from a state of emotional turmoil. You fix the problem, you learn the lesson, but you refuse to let the event leave a permanent scar on your soul. You let it go. You let it pass. You remain the mountain, unshaken by the fleeting storms of daily life. 5. Don't seek revenge. The desire for revenge is a primal, powerful instinct. When someone wrongs us, the mind screams for retribution, for a balancing of the scales. We fantasize about their downfall, about making them feel the same pain they inflicted on us. But the Stoics saw this desire for what it truly is, a poison that you drink yourself, hoping the other person will die. They understood that the act of seeking revenge harms the avenger far more than the target. Marcus Aurelius offered a revolutionary perspective on justice. He said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Think about the profound wisdom in that statement. When you seek revenge, you become entangled with the person who hurt you. You allow their actions to dictate yours. You lower yourself to their level, adopting their tactics of cruelty and harm. In doing so, you betray your own character and become a mirror image of the very thing you despise. The person who wronged you has already won because they have succeeded in corrupting you. Furthermore, the Stoics believed that a person who does wrong is already punishing themselves. By acting without virtue, by being cruel, dishonest, or unjust, they are damaging their own soul. They are living a life out of harmony with reason and nature. As Seneca put it, "A man is his own easiest dupe, for he is the first to be cheated." Their behavior already makes them their own worst enemy. They are trapped in the prison of their own flawed character. Why would you need to add to their misery? Your energy is finite and precious. Wasting it on plotting revenge is like setting fire to your own house to spite a neighbor. The true victory, the ultimate revenge, is to move on. It is to live a good, virtuous, and happy life, completely indifferent to their fate. Your success and tranquility are the ultimate proof that they have no power over you. 6. Don't betray your standards. At the core of Stoic philosophy is the concept of living in accordance with virtue. For the Stoics, the four cardinal virtues were wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Every action, every decision was to be measured against these standards. Anger, by its very nature, is a betrayal of these standards. It is a temporary suspension of reason, a surrender to our most primitive and destructive urges. When you are angry, you are not wise, you are not just, you are not temperate. You are simply a force of chaos. The Stoics taught that the greatest harm that can befall a person is not poverty, sickness, or even death. The greatest harm is the damage one does to one's own character. External events can harm your body or your property, but only you can harm your soul. When you allow anger to take control, you are willingly inflicting this harm upon yourself. You are choosing to act in a way that is beneath you, in a way that you will almost certainly regret when your reason returns. As Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, how much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? The insult from a colleague might sting for a moment, but the shame of an unprofessional outburst can last for years. The frustration of a delayed flight is temporary, but the memory of treating an airline employee with contempt is a permanent stain on your character. The Stoics urge us to see that our own anger and destructive urges are a far greater threat to our well-being than anything another person can do to us. They are the true enemy. To maintain your cool is to refuse to betray your own highest standards. It is a declaration that you will not allow the flawed behavior of others to drag you down into the mud. You will hold fast to your principles. You will act with dignity and reason, not because it will impress others, but because it is who you have chosen to be. 7. Use humor as a shield. In the face of absurdity and malice, sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a counterattack, but a well-timed laugh. The Stoics, often perceived as stern and serious, understood the immense power of humor to disarm anger, both in ourselves and in others. Laughter creates psychological distance. It reframes a situation from a high-stakes personal drama into something manageable, even ridiculous. When you can laugh at an insult, you are signaling that it has no power over you. You are showing that your self-worth is so secure that the petty attacks of others are nothing more than a mild amusement. Socrates, a major influence on the Stoics, was a master of this. When people would insult him in the Athenian marketplace, he would often respond with self-deprecating humor, agreeing with them in a way that made their anger seem foolish and misplaced. He was once kicked by a man, and when his friends were outraged and urged him to sue, Socrates simply replied, "What? If a donkey kicked me, would you have me sue it?" By refusing to take the offense seriously, he robbed the offender of the reaction he craved. He demonstrated a level of inner freedom that his attacker could not comprehend. Humor is also a powerful antidote to our own anger. When you feel yourself getting worked up over something, try to step back and see the absurdity in the situation. You are a conscious being, a tiny speck on a planet hurtling through an infinite cosmos, and you are allowing your peace to be shattered because someone used the wrong tone in an email. It's almost comical. Laughing at yourself, at your own ego's tendency to get inflated and offended, is a profound act of humility and wisdom. It breaks the tension, releases the pressure, and allows your rational mind to regain control. Humor is not about dismissing real problems. It is a shield that protects your inner state, allowing you to deal with those problems from a position of strength, not rage. 8. Detach from ego. So often when we feel the sting of anger, what has truly been wounded is not justice or fairness or morality. It is our ego. Someone questions our intelligence and our ego feels threatened. Someone gets the credit we deserve and our ego feels diminished. Someone disrespects us and our ego feels slighted. Anger in many cases is simply the ego's defense mechanism. It's violent lashing out to protect a fragile sense of self-importance. The Stoics understood this danger and advocated for a radical detachment from the ego's demands. The need to win an argument, to have the last word, to prove the other person wrong. These are all cravings of the ego. They have nothing to do with finding the truth or resolving a conflict constructively. The ego wants validation, not resolution. It wants to be right more than it wants to be happy. The Stoic path is to let go of this incessant need. It is to prioritize truth over victory and peace over pride. As Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This is a direct assault on the ego. It means being willing to lose the argument, to walk away, to let someone else think they've won, because you know that the real prize is not their submission, but your own tranquility. Detaching from ego means recognizing that your worth is not determined by the opinions of others. It is determined by your character, your actions, and your commitment to virtue. When you truly internalize this, insults lose their sting. Criticism becomes data, not an attack. You no longer need to defend a fragile, inflated image of yourself. You can operate from a place of quiet confidence. The next time you feel anger rising during a disagreement, ask yourself, is it justice I'm defending or just my pride? More often than not, you'll find it's the latter. And in that realization, you'll find the freedom to let it go. 9. Practice empathy. This final strategy is perhaps the most challenging, yet the most transformative. It requires a fundamental shift in how we view those who wrong us. The Stoics, particularly Marcus Aurelius, believed that no one does wrong willingly. They argued that people act out of ignorance, not malice. When someone is cruel, dishonest, or selfish, it is because they mistakenly believe that these actions will bring them some form of good, be it security, pleasure, or power. They are ignorant of the true good, which is virtue and living in harmony with reason. From this perspective, a person who acts badly is not an evil monster to be hated, but a misguided, unfortunate soul to be pitied. They are like a person who, not knowing the difference between medicine and poison, willingly poisons themselves. Their actions are a symptom of their own inner blindness and suffering. This does not mean you excuse their behavior or allow them to harm you. You must still protect yourself and uphold justice. But it changes your internal emotional response from hot anger to a kind of cool, compassionate understanding. When you assume ignorance over malice, it becomes much harder to stay angry. You start to see the weakness, the fear, and the confusion that drives their destructive behavior. You might think, this person must be in a lot of pain to act this way, or they clearly don't know a better way to handle this situation. This empathy is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of profound wisdom and strength. It allows you to address the situation with clarity and firmness, but without the corrosive poison of hatred in your heart. It is the ultimate act of emotional mastery, turning a potential enemy into an object of understanding and preserving your own peace in the process. Now, before you go, let me tell you a story about the choice we all have when faced with negativity, the parable of the mud of insult. A master and his student were walking through a forest. The student, troubled by a recent insult, was complaining bitterly. The master stopped and picked up a handful of mud from a puddle. He turned to the student and said, "This mud is the insult you received. If I throw it at you and it hits you, you will be dirty and angry. But what if you were a great, unmovable stone wall? I could throw this mud all day, and while the wall might be splattered, its nature as a stone wall would be unchanged. It would not feel anger or shame. In time, the sun would bake the mud, and the wind would blow it away, and the wall would be as it was." The master then let the mud fall from his hand. Do not be the person who is stained by the mud. Be the wall. Let the insults of others be nothing more than mud thrown against a stone. They cannot change who you are unless you allow them to. The power to remain unstained, to be the wall and not the person covered in mud, lies within each of us. It is not a gift bestowed upon a select few, but a skill forged in the fires of daily practice. The 9 strategies we've explored today are not just ancient philosophical concepts. They are practical tools for your mental arsenal. Start with 1. The next time you feel the heat of anger, choose the pause. The next time someone offends you, choose to see their ignorance instead of malice. Build your inner citadel, brick by brick, choice by choice. For in the end, the greatest victory is not in winning arguments or defeating enemies, but in conquering yourself and mastering the unshakable peace that comes from within.